Hello, this is Dr. Hoffert, Superintendent of Warsaw Community Schools. And I wanted to reach out to you today with a presentation that we originally gave at the school board meeting in January, talking about the state of the schools for Warsaw Community Schools. And I wanted to do this today because we are coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the COVID-19 pandemic. You know, in 176 years of history of public schools for the Warsaw community, I don't know if there was ever a more challenging year than we had this last year. That being said, there were so many positives that have come out of this year. And as we look back and reflect, I believe that we are stronger now, a year later, from all the challenges that we ended up going through. So I want to take just a couple minutes and share where we have been just in that quick reflection. You know, we'll never forget. I remember our first COVID-19 meeting was back in February of last year, 2020. And that was the first time that we started talking about hand washing, getting more hand sanitizer inside of our schools, looking at some of our policies and procedures that were in place. But none of us could have ever guessed what was going to happen on Friday the 13th. As all throughout our nation, we watched our schools close down. Originally, we thought that it was going to be just a very temporary shutdown. That temporary shutdown ended up being the rest of the school year, something that we could have never imagined inside of it. And then the question was, you know, as hard as it was to shut down our schools, how hard would it be to open them back up? And so in reflection, I wanted to share just a few of the highlights and a few of the things that we've learned along the way. First of all, many of you heard me say, teamwork makes the dream work. Behind me on my desk, I actually have a poster that we created because, you know, we have lots of moving components here inside of Warsaw Community Schools. When we look at it, we have everything from our custodial team to our technology team to our maintenance team, transportation, paraprofessional, our substitutes, volunteers, food service, nurses, our school resource officers, our office personnel, our teachers, our administrative staff, our counselors, our special services, our school board, our community, our athletic department, and they're all centered around our students. As we look at each one of those components, you know, it takes the entire team to come together to make this possible. In Warsaw Community Schools, we have over 1,200 employees and almost 7,000 students. To put it in perspective, every day our bus routes go over 12,500 miles. We have the largest restaurant in Kosciuszko County. And sometimes during the pandemic, we were preparing over 25,000 meals per week during the pandemic. We have over 30 native languages that are coming into our schools. And we have an incredible community that comes around and supports us. When we look at this, we are one of the largest school systems in the state to get back to physical education and to stay open. You know, sometimes I love what other headlines say about the incredible work that was done here inside of this community. One of my favorites was after graduation, the headline was, Warsaw defies the doubters and graduates the class of 2020. When we look at this, we realize that there were a lot of things that were lost this last year. When we talk about our senior class, they did not get some of the activities in 2020 that other senior classes have received, whether that was prom, whether that was some of the academic competitions, the sports competitions. And the question was, how could we modify things? And how could we come together as a community and as a team to be able to accomplish some of our goals? As we met with our seniors, the one thing that they wanted more than anything else was graduation. Our original graduation date was set for the beginning of June, but due to the governor's orders, we could not go forward with that. We also had to figure out, how can we do this safely for our students? How can we come together? So we knew that this was going to be one of our first big challenges of reopening our schools. And in July, we put together a graduation like none other. We put together a graduation for the first time out on our football field. And we showed our community that it could be done and it could be done safely. And you know, our seniors have something that they will always remember. They have a graduation that nobody had ever had before, but it started the ball rolling. We were the first school system, to our knowledge, in the state of Indiana to open up summer school. And we did that almost immediately after the governor allowed us to do this. Now, I'll be honest with you, there was a lot of fear out there. There were a lot of questions of, what will this look like? Can we really do this safely? And you know what? We started out with our secondary schools, and then we moved into our elementary schools. And, you know, I watched a lot of confidence be gained. I watched it be gained with our teachers. I watched it be grown with our students. I watched it be grown with our community, saying, you know what, we know how important in-person education is for our students. We understand the importance of our teachers, of our support staff coming together, and we understand what this means for even our local economy, to be able to have students in class going full-time to school. We were able to get our sports camps off the ground in July. And we watched this because these are some of the things that our community needs, the competition, the activities. And we watched our students very shyly come out and realize that not everything was lost inside of our community. We watched our 2021 school year, and we watched it take off. Because again, there were a lot of doubters that were out there, and there were a lot of people that were questioning what that meant to bring back students. It took a lot of protocols, it took a lot of practices to be able to get things in place, but we said, we're going to do this. We realized that we could have to pivot along the way. We realized that there might be some changes that need to take place, but we realized how important it was to be able to get our students back, just from their mental welfare. At the same time, we realized that, okay, when we're getting them back, we realize that there are other pieces that go into Warsaw Community Schools. We're going to try to replicate those pieces. It might not mean that everything is exactly the same, but if that means bringing our community together, even if it's limited, for our sporting events, for our academic competitions, we were going to do everything that we could in our power to be able to make sure that that took place. When we look at it, I can't stress enough, we have learned so much along the way. This picture right here is actually my son. The first time that we asked him to wear a mask, that was back in May of 2020. And I'll always remember, as a second grader going into being a third grader, he put on his mask for a couple minutes and he said, "Okay, Dad," and it actually wasn't a couple minutes, it was probably more about 20 seconds. And he took it off and he said, "How did I do, Dad? Did I do okay?" And I thought, okay, we got a lot to learn here along the way. You know, our students have done an amazing job adapting. Some of the fears that we had at the beginning of what it would mean to bring back our students safely, we've been able to accomplish those. We began to realize that some of our fears probably weren't the biggest concerns that we had that were out there. Our students have done just an amazing job. Our community has done an amazing job. Our employees have done an amazing job coming around and saying, you know what, whatever it takes, we're going to make sure that it works. You know, I really appreciated our partnership that we gained with our local health department along the way. Dr. Remington was quoted at one of the mayor's press conferences as saying, "It comes down to administrative muster and the ability to muster the human resources as people are taken out by quarantine directives to keep our schools open. It's as much of an administrative issue as it is a threat of contagion within the walls of the schools. We will continue to take that approach as the health department. Warsaw and their administration has been very robust in their desire to keep the schools open and put together layered strategies to accomplish that. We have supported that type of strategy from the Kosciuszko County Health Department. So we'll have an ongoing discussion, I'm sure, but I don't see anything changing of how we approach the school." Again, we've appreciated this support because as we've come together, we've tried to use a lot of common sense inside of what we've done as Warsaw Community Schools. We are one of the largest school systems in the state to stay open during the 2020-2021 school year. And that's all the way from kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade. Some of the things that we've learned along the way, we've learned that communication is vitally important. In the midst of all of the changes that were taking place due to COVID, we were able to revamp our entire website, 14 new websites. We've continued to put out COVID updates, both to our faculty and staff and to our community. We've launched a new Warsaw Community Schools app. And if you haven't downloaded our app, please go into it. It's a great way to be able to get updates. We've worked on transportation communication. We've worked on a WCS communication guide. All of these things to better inform our local community and our employees of what's going on. When we look at other pieces, we look at teacher employee compensation that has taken place. You know, one of the things that I am the most proud of is none of our employees had hours cut. While we might have changed job descriptions, while we might have changed what was going on during last spring and even the pandemic and what this looks like due to these new protocols that we have, We have continued to move forward inside of our compensation strategy. Each of the last 2 years, we've been able to give our teachers between a $1,400 and $1,600 raise. And next year, we expect that our starting teacher salary will be over $40,000. We've also been able to put in increases for all employees. We've gone forward with our teacher appreciation grant, health screening incentives, insurance holidays, our ADM incentive, our support staff pandemic stipend. All of these things that we look at to say thank you to our employees, because we understand that it was not easy to keep our doors open each step along the way. As we look at our budget, we know that in 2020 we held on a number of expenditures because we wanted to make sure that we were doing things wisely. We didn't always know what the future was going to hold. We continued forward with our comprehensive financial planning, making sure that we had a plan for actually the next 3 to 4 years of where we wanted to go as a school system. We continued to work on our tax rate, and we have one of the lowest tax rates in the state of Indiana when it comes to our schools. We wanted to make sure that we focused on efficiencies. One of those efficiencies was our Gateway building, our old Madison. While we realized that building had lived out its purpose here inside of Warsaw Community Schools, we wanted to make sure that we were providing something for our community. And so we're very proud of the housing project that it is going to be starting in the Gateway Grove community that is going to be in that place to carry on the tradition of a community benefit inside of that land. We've been able to utilize space all throughout our district. And we've been able to go forward with some of our facility plans that you're going to see in these next coming months of our rotation of our 10-year facility planning. At the same time, there's no way that we could have done this without our community support. We've had thousands of dollars of grants, donations, and in-kind donations, work from our local community coming together. During this last year, we've been able to receive additional grants around safety, social emotional learning for our students and staff, technology infrastructure, student and staff wellness. We've had our community come together and donate thousands of handmade masks for our students. School lunches, again, during some of the height of the pandemic shutdown, our food service was putting together 25,000 meals for our local community. And our transportation department was figuring out new ways, instead of delivering students, to be able to deliver these meals one by one to students' houses. We've had the CARES Act that has been able to come in and help supplement some of the needs to make sure that our schools were being able to be opened safely. The United Way has come alongside of us with some of the academic gaps and supporting our summer school program. The Edgewood Food Drive was something that again was incredibly big this last year. And then I can't stress enough, the most valuable asset that is out there is time. And our community has surrounded around us with time and said, whatever it takes, we're here to make sure that our schools are being able to function and function safely in what we do. We've also looked at a focus on mental health. Here a couple of years ago, you might remember that we received the Lilly Comprehensive Counseling grant that was out there. We've been able to move forward, and we understand how important this is. The pandemic has changed the way that we look at mental health, both for our students and for our employees. We've been able to continue forward with our student assistance program, and this has never been a more dire need than what we have right now. We've been able to continue forward with our employee assistance program. We've started mental health tours inside of our schools, and again, working together hand in hand with Bowen Center and also our staffs. We've been able to incorporate therapy dogs into our schools, and we continue to see this program growing. And we've also been able to look at school start times. Last year when we looked at this, we had no idea what this would mean during the middle of a pandemic, but being able to look at and evaluate how the start times of our schools impact the social emotional health of our students. We've also been able to have a lot of curriculum advancements. Our teachers, I can't throw out enough pats on the back to say where we have come in this last year. All of a sudden overnight, we had to figure out how to change our curriculum from being an in-person curriculum to a technology-driven curriculum during the weeks of shutdown that we had. Our teachers did an amazing job. They learned so much, and these are skill sets that we will not be dropping anytime soon. They are skill sets that I see us growing upon. And these are the skills that we have learned through this pandemic that we've said, you know what, we're going to come out of this even better than we were before. Things like I had no idea how to use Zoom before last spring. At the same time, we were able to move forward. During this time, we had the state of Indiana certify 4 of our elementary schools. Our dual language immersion programs have continued to grow and continue to prosper. We still have a top-ranked career center in the state of Indiana. And we've been able to look at unique curriculums that we realize for real-world needs that are out there. One of the exciting ones that's coming around the corner is a personal finance class for all students inside of Warsaw Community Schools that we see as a local requirement of best preparing our students for the future. At the same time, we realize that in-person learning, how do we take advantage of this time? How do we make sure that we are preparing our students for their future, not for our past? So last year during the pandemic, we were actually able to renovate 33 classrooms over at the high school. We've looked at Lakeview and Gateway renovations, and we were able to do some summer work inside of there. Harrison and Eisenhower, we were able to go in and do some infrastructure replacements with their chillers. And we were also able to do a number of safety and security upgrades. All while we realized that we had this time last spring to be able to move forward. You're going to be seeing some other movements forward when it comes to construction inside of our 10-year facility plan in the next coming months. We realize that this is important to be able to keep our schools moving forward in a cycle to make sure that we have the facilities that our students, staff, and community needs. So as we look at this for our upcoming goals for 2021, I am so thankful where we're at. Again, being able to keep our schools open and being able to keep our schools forward looking here during our 2020-2021 school year has been so critically important. We've been able to move forward with our strategic plan. We have 4 major pillars that we are announcing that have come out of the last 1.5 to 2 years of survey work, focus groups, and study as we've been able to come together and realize what do the next 5 years in Warsaw Community Schools, what are they going to entail? We still have continued work as far as we've been able to come on teacher compensation and employee compensation. We still have forward planning that is taking place as we speak to make sure that Warsaw Community Schools stays on the cutting edge and competitive when it comes to salaries. We have building projects and learning environments. This next year, once again, you're going to see some major steps taking place as Warsaw Community High School turns 30 years old, and as Lakeview is now over 60 years old. We also realize that there's still COVID-19 that is out there. How do we make sure that we continue to have our safety measures in place? How do we make sure that again, we are doing the right things for our students and our staff and the pieces that we have learned along the way? And how do we make sure that we are making safety and academic data-driven decisions? So we have a lot still in front of us, but we have a lot to celebrate after this last year. When we talk about some of the next steps, we encourage you to go to our website, www.warsawschools.org. And under the links, you'll find an area that's there for our strategic plan. And again, these are the 4 pillars that I alluded to just a little bit earlier, and we're so proud of the community, staff, and student work that has all gone into creating these 4 pillars that we have. And the 4 pillars are going to be around empathy. How do we understand each other just a little bit better inside of our world today, and how do we build those skills with our students? Adaptability. How do we look at things, and how do we make the needed changes that we need to? As we talked about the financial literacy class, this is one of the ones that goes into adaptability. The idea of what are some of the skills that we need for students in the future. Inclusivity. I don't think this has ever been more important than what it is right now. How do we make sure that we are a warm, welcoming environment inside of Warsaw Community Schools and our local community? And then experience. How do we make sure that we are preparing students for the next generation? Again, these are all important pieces, and we'd love to spend a little bit more time with you just going through some of those specifics and where our school system is headed. So please go to our website and check out the videos that our teams that are leading these different pillars are creating. Once again, as we look at the last year inside of Warsaw Community Schools, it brought us challenges we never could have expected, but it also brought us a lot of knowledge, and it brought us together as a larger community inside of our schools to realize how important our public schools are here in our local community. We want to thank everybody for their continued support and encouragement. We have so much to be proud of. Thank you.